live as well. Alright, so we are live on YouTube. In the meanwhile, you can just verify everything is coming up there. And let's see if anyone joins. I can see Avinash, you have joined. If you have any questions, we can start taking from you. Avinash, are you able to hear us? Okay, I think there are some audio issues with Avinash. So we are not able to hear Avinash. Alright, so everyone, if you are able to hear me in YouTube, you can join the link as well directly if you want to have a face-to-face conversation. Or if you have any questions, you can ask right over here in the chat. I can see the 3 people who are watching in YouTube. Over here we have Hasti, Mayank and Avinash. Anyone have any questions, you can start asking it now. This session is primarily designed for any questions that you have, that you are facing on day-to-day activities, or you have some doubts, feel free to ask and we will be able to answer you right over here. I can see one person, Santosh, is joining in Zoom. If anyone who are watching us in YouTube and if you want to join live, just reply back over here, we will give you the link to join directly. Alright, Santosh, you have any questions? Am I audible? Anyone able to hear me?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you. Yeah, just I joined. I am outside, so just I want to listen. What is the topic about that? Yeah.
This today's topic is just open house. Any questions that is you are having, you are facing on day-to-day activity, or some curiosity you have to understand something, feel free to ask any question.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so someone is asking on YouTube to share the link. I will share the link right over here. Santosh or Avinash, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Okay, I can see someone, Mashuddin Quasi, have joined. If you have any questions, you can ask. Mashuddin.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Do you have any questions, Mashuddin?
Yeah, just give me a minute. I'll just set up my
Sure.
laptop and voice.
Sure. Okay. All right. So seems like no one have any questions today. We will wait for a couple of more minutes. If anyone have any questions, we will be able to answer. Okay. Okay, someone responded on YouTube. Joining in a few moments.
Yeah. Hi, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wanted to understand in terms of estimating any user story while in terms of software development. What is the best way out? Means in terms of estimating the user story, relative estimation is best, or then we can go for the absolute estimation.
See, you are working. If you are working on Agile, or trying to follow the Agile way of working, it's always better to go for relative estimation. And primarily, when we go for relative estimations, it's better to go with the story pointing instead of t-shirt sizing. T-shirt sizing is also a relative estimation, but industry-wise, we use story point estimation compared with the absolute estimation, which normally calculated for the effort estimation. Now, for a team who is transitioning from waterfall, for them during the transition, they may face difficulties to understand that how the story point is, because that is something totally new to them. In that point of time, you may observe they are doing both. But gradually, once you will be establishing agility within your team, you will be leaving that absolute levels of effort estimation and coming to a story point based estimation. That's advisable.
Yeah, got it.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions anyone have?
Yeah, one more thing, sir, just wanted to ask about when the team is not, they are exceeding the timeline. If you are following the 2 weeks of sprint and the team is exceeding the timeline and they are not able to forward that particular development to go for QA testing or something. So in that
Timeline
case,
means
can the
what exactly you mean by timeline?
it's a sprint, 2 week sprint if you are following, then that particular task is not going for the QA testing. Then how it will be impacting to the next sprint, or how it will take
See, whenever
taking forward.
you are starting a sprint, you might have went through a sprint planning or iteration planning,
Yes.
right? So when you are planning, you might have observed, okay, this is our capacity. I'm not sure how you are planning your capacity, but let's assume that you are going through story point based capacity based on your velocity. You let's assume that your velocity was 24, so you are taking somewhere close to 24, 22 or 23 story points. And this 22 or 23 story point is not just one story. There may be a couple of stories, 4 stories, 5 stories, or 6 stories. They are that you have planned, which is reaching to 22 story points. Now, when you are working on first thing as a Scrum Master, or I'm not sure what's your role is. Our goal is to not to go into developing all the stories and then start the testing. That's a mini waterfall. We don't want to go. We need to follow a finish first approach. Now, start one story, finish that, next one story, finish that. In that way, at least by end of that time, you will be able to get something like what I'll say, whatever you have planned, you will be able to work on that, or whatever you have completed, that is treated as done. Now, if you think there are 2 or 3 stories, or even one story is not completed, in that case, you will be able to move it to backlog. Don't move it to the next sprint. Plan with your product owners that whether that story is still important or not, and if that is important, then you can plan it for the next sprint. Otherwise, you plan whatever is important for your product owner.
Got it. Got it.
Okay, someone in YouTube is saying that your video has an echo. Stika, can you just verify by watching in YouTube that still it is having some echo? In the meanwhile, if anyone have any questions, you can ask. I can see Samit Chandra, you also have joined. Whoever is in Zoom, is there any echo?
No for me.
Okay, so there is a question coming up from YouTube. My question is how Scrum Master roles are different in safe environment and non-safe organization. Okay, I'm not sure why there are too much people are saying too much of echo. Let me first fix that. Alright, I'm not sure whoever is on YouTube, if that echo is still there. I have muted my desktop audio. I'm not sure if that will be ping it out. I have just one mic and audio input capture. I will mute that as well. So let's see if that works. So only I have the mic enabled. Alright, so YouTube, one questions what I have received is, okay, what is the difference in safe environment and non-safe organizations as a Scrum Master? See, when you talk about the role of a Scrum Master, it's still the same even if you're working on as a team level, within safe organization, within non-safe organization. But when you are working on a safe organization, you have some additional responsibilities or additional areas to play your role. So number one, you will be at the Scrum level, you are just as a team member. You are working with one team or two team max, and you will be facilitating the way Scrum Master is prescribed. If you are going for a safe, where you need to think about there is one product that you are building and that is need to be built by multiple teams. So there are lots of coordinations is required between multiple teams. There are few program level events. If you understand safe, there is something called program level. At the program level, you need to coordinate with other Scrum Master, you need to coordinate with the product management some point of time, and you have lots of integrations point like system demo or PI planning, you have inspect and adapt event. So whatever as a team level, as a non-safe organizations, when you are working as a Scrum Master, the same responsibility you need to follow in safe organizations. On top of that, there are some additional responsibilities. I believe that answered your question, whoever is in YouTube, and also give me some feedback from YouTube if you are having the same echo or not. I believe that answered your questions. All right.
Hi, Milad. They're looking for a template for a sprint closure report.
See, sprint closure report, if you are looking for a template, I don't have any available template for sprint closure report, but I can guide you what you can include as a part of sprint closure report. Now, few areas that definitely you can talk about when you are closing. What is the overall story summary? How much you have planned, how much you have completed, and if you have different epics that you are working on or features you are working on, you can categorize them with the epic that these features we have completed 100%, this feature we have completed 20%, something like that. You give an overall, if you are going for, let's say, story point base, you can talk about what is your commitment reliability, how many stories were completed, how many stories were not completed and moved to the backlog, how many stories were not completed and decided that this is no longer required, how many bugs that is still open when you completed your sprint. You can also talk about, okay, how is your final burn down chart looks like. You can also include how many of your stories not completed because of what reasons. Is there any roadblockers you still have or impediments that you have identified which was not closed? You can still talk about, is there any technical depth that you are leaving, some patchwork that you have done which needs to be fixed later on. You can talk about something, how is your velocity chart looks like from a kind of a trend. This is, you are completing sprint 12. So last 5 or 6 sprints, how the velocity trends of velocity is coming up, trend of your commitment reliability coming up. All those different information you can include. Now, how you create that, you create it in Excel or PowerPoint or within Jira or within your Rally, that's totally up to you. Samit, does that answer your question?
Sure, yeah.
Alright, so whoever is in YouTube, let me know if the echo is still there. Krishna or Hasti, is there a volume audio coming up in YouTube? Can you check? Alright, any other questions? Anyone?
Hello.
Yeah.
On my side, I cannot hear any echo. I do not know why that there is some issue, maybe on their side. On
Okay.
my side, everything is very clear.
In YouTube, right? Not on Zoom.
Yes, in YouTube. Yes,
Okay.
on YouTube.
Okay. Alright. Alright, so Masiuddin, and what I have answered, there are 2 questions I have answered. One is the sprint closure summary. Another is the Scrum Master's role in safe and non-safe organizations. We have Mayank present here who also have experience and he is also an instructor. So I'll request Mayank, if you have anything that you want to add on top of that, feel free to add here.
Nothing as of now yet.
Okay. Alright, so Samit, Santosh, Masiuddin, Avinash, any other questions? And from YouTube I can see Krishna, if you have joined, do you have any questions? Someone has, hey boy, okay, someone joined at Windows 10. Alright. Who's that? Okay, Samit only.
It's on the top.
Okay. Alright, so you are done with all your doubts. Though we have a very limited people, I have time. And this is your opportunity. If you have any questions, doubts that you want to talk about, you can ask me. We can talk about that.
So Niladri, my product owner has changed recently, and the product owner is reluctant to kind of give the detailed requirements and acceptance criteria. And my team was told that the team needs to elevate itself so that they can document the detailed requirements and document the acceptance criteria, and then review it with the product team. So how can we go about it? Because there doesn't seem a way around it.
Okay, see, when you are actually working on, let's assume a new, you are Scrum team, you are Kanban, what you are working on?
We're transforming a traditional project into a Scrum team.
Okay.
So, the new product owner that has come into this team has kind of a traditional mindset. So he's, kind of reluctant to, spend time on acceptance criteria in grooming meetings, etc. So, acceptance criteria, for example, I've given a lot of stress to the team on getting the acceptance criteria from the product owner or the stakeholders. But we definitely need to review it with the PO, even if the team is writing it. Ideally, it comes from the PO, but the PO doesn't want to get into it. So we just review it. So my concern is scope 3, like in farming.
Okay. See, when did you started working with this new product owner? How long it is?
February.
Okay. So before that, you are into Agile, or you are just transitioning?
Before that, also since January, this project started in January, so we were transitioning, we were transforming into an agile team. The previous product owner also was a little reluctant, but I was conversing as a Scrum Master. I was continuously and trying to get him various.
Okay. See, do you when you started working with Agile, have you identified what's your definition of ready?
Definition of again, when I joined, the dev lead and the product owner used to have their own discussion, and there was no DOR. So slowly we developed a DOD, and apart from incorporating the Scrum ceremonies, I was getting into the discussions with the POs to have acceptance criteria and the DOR, but the DOR was never finalized.
All right. So what I understand is the product owner is asking you to work on something, but you don't have something created a standardization that this is a working agreement we need to follow. Because whenever he wants to implement a process, I think similar kind of question is also coming up. That can you please explain how to make working agreement there? Any format example with product owner stakeholders, also it is the Scrum Master job to do that. So
Yeah, there is the PO himself doesn't want to get into any work, any standardization agreement. They're saying that okay, you document the detailed requirements. So basically, they're asking the team to come up with the DOR.
So you may need, whenever you go for an agile, one of the important area is it cannot be possible from a bottom up approach. It always has to be a top down approach. You need to have the support from leadership that we want to go agile, and this is what we need to follow. Now when maybe you need to talk with your leaderships and product owners together to mention that the core of agile is not doing too much of documentation. We need to bring up the collaboration by conversation. Now when you are working on Scrum or Kanban, there is a concept of story, user story, and if you remember on user story we talked about it has 3 parts: card, conversation and confirmation. So what if we are not following that, we may not be able to do agile. You can talk with the leadership that okay, if we are not following agile, then ultimately we are trying to showcase or we are trying to show others that we are doing agile, but at least at our end we are retrofitting agile. We need to follow some of the crucial areas which bring up the agility or brings the agility in. The conversation is very much important, and when we are having the conversation, based on that we need to document the conversation part as a part of acceptance criteria. Now if what happen is, if we are not the person who create document, because we are developer and our job is not to create documentations, our job is to deliver what is asked to us. Now there is a concept of working with stories. The stories can be created by anyone, but we don't need to go for a detailed documentation. What is important is going through a conversation, make it ready to be start working on. Now how we will be making it ready? We will be having certain working agreement, maybe some criteria like definition of ready, or definition of ready is something very important in your cases. So if your product owner is not ready to work on that, that means that we are not ready. We are not ready to start working on Agile. You may need to go through some transformation area. You need to go through trainings or workshops and make everyone understand this is what the right way of working on it. Otherwise, we will not be able to go with that. I think the question who asked on YouTube that how you can define a working agreement before you start your first sprint. You may, many people they call it differently. Someone says this is sprint 0, someone says this is discovery sprint, and someone says in other name as well. What is important is we need to define a working agreement at that point of time. Within that, you need to follow, okay, this is in case there are some conflicting situations, the working agreement is, I'm just giving some example that my point of view may not be coincide with the other people's point of view, but I should respect them. We should complete our sprint in 2 weeks. At every story should meet this definition of ready, and at the completion product owner should verify that by looking into the definition of done. There can be multiple of those working agreement that you can define, and then you can start working on them. Over a certain period of time, retrospect that is there any modification needed to be there on the working agreement. Maybe you need to tweak your definition of ready. Maybe you need to change some other areas that you can do. Mind if you want to add something over here, you can.
Yeah, so definition of ready is one thing, and also one more thing which I would like to add is, so there are 3 dimensions of the Scrum Master area. The first is towards the team, the second is towards the product owner, and the third one is towards the organization. So if a product owner is new, or if he is reluctant, or if he does not know what exactly needs to be done, the Scrum Master can act as a coach for the product owner, and he would really guide the product owner that these are the things required as part of user story, these are the things which are required as part of definition of time or definition of ready. So you as a Scrum Master can join hands with the product owner and help him achieve the level which would be helpful for you as well, and which would be helpful for me.
Okay, I believe that answer your questions. And okay. Okay, so from YouTube there is a questions came up that do you need to revisit and review these agreements every 2-3 months? Yeah, it's a good practice that if you think, okay, you are still not established enough, you are trying to find out whether those working agreement is good or not, you can revisit that and you can change them if it is required. Right? Okay. All right, any other questions anyone have? Mahesh, you are saying something, we are not able to hear you. All right. Any other questions from YouTube or from the Zoom link? All right, I'll wait for a couple of minutes in case anyone have any questions. Feel free to ask now. Okay, someone in YouTube asked a question in the interview. What I am observing, companies are asking project management related cues. I am in the process of giving Scrum Master interview. Yes, that's happened in many organizations. You cannot control that because people are looking for person who can manage their project as well. Now, I'm not sure what you are categorizing as project management questions. If you can just give some example, we can talk about whether that is project management related question or not. Now, in the industry, what happens is the people sometimes they think the Scrum Master is also a project manager and they will do that project management activities. Now, project management activities, something if they are asking for doing documentations or they are asking for doing budgeting, doing hiring and firing, there are a few organizations where they may expect you are playing a dual role. Now, if you want to play as a Scrum Master, you may not get every organizations have that maturity of thinking that Scrum Master is a full-time job. And some organizations you may feel that actually this is not a full-time job because they are pretty much mature, the teams are self-organized, but still the team needs some areas of hand-holding, and along with that they want to utilize that person's bandwidth as doing some additional role. Though they think okay, Scrum Master should keep themselves aside from doing the coding part or testing part, so they relate it okay, project management can something they will be able to do. Now again, project management have multiple different aspects. Now if you are budgeting and planning, that you can treat it as okay, that is my additional role. Now budgeting, planning or strategy making, that's totally different than as a Scrum Master role for the Agile teams. When you are working on Agile teams, you need to understand that planning is one of the important area. It's when we talk about planning, it's not just sprint planning. In Agile, there are multiple different levels of planning. For example, vision planning, your portfolio planning or roadmap planning, you have release planning. But only difference is in project management, the planning is one time and you follow the plan. Over here, these plans are subject to change based on how you inspect and adapt and the current situations that you have came up. So when you may answer those questions in such a way that it's aligned with the Agile way of planning instead of just going for project management level planning where you make a upfront planning and go for a sign off. You make okay, this is the total timeline, this is the total cost coming up. There you may not be able to have a very good handshaking between the Agile way of working and following that project management plan. You can explain that in the interview that what exactly your expectation is. If you are looking for a pure project manager, you are looking for a Scrum Master, you are looking for a person who can do a dual role, that can also be acceptable. That some organizations, you need to think from a practical point of view that a Scrum team cannot survive in a large organizational hierarchy. There are some points of management is required. Someone needs to take care of the appraisal, hiring or firing, the budgeting, and the client escalations. If you're thinking from a product-based company, you can still think about only Agile can survive. But if you think about a service industry, over there the project management aspects plays a role. So it's better if you have that project management role. You can go for the service industry if you are a pure Scrum Master, not having enough knowledge on the project management side. Try to focus on the product-based company where you will be able to apply your roles much more better way. I believe that I have answered your questions. Mayank, if you have anything to add, feel free to add.
In case from a Scrum Master role one wants to transition into product owner or product manager into product management, so what would be the route for that?
See, when we talk about product manager, that's a totally different role than Scrum Master. Product manager, something who are more domain or functional aligned. That, for example, you cannot be just saying, okay, from tomorrow I will be a product manager or product owner of a product that is related to healthcare or that is related to finance or that is related to insurance, because you need to have that domain knowledge in very depth. If you are a Scrum Master, you may not need that domain knowledge into the details or in that depth. You will be just facilitating and coaching the team because you are the master of Scrum and you know that. But once you want to manage a product, you need to have the details knowledge of that particular product. If related to finance, you need to understand what are your target markets, when you should be launching what product because of the target sensitivity or your market sensitivity. You need to understand which items should get priority because of the return of investment may come up. So there are multiple different areas. If you think that I have a very strong knowledge on a insurance product, you can become a product manager or owner of that insurance product. But that does not mean you can be a product manager for a gaming industry, because they have altogether different need, different features is there. Are you able to understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I can see someone, Vasudeva, have joined. You have some question, Vasudeva?
I just joined to see the things. I just was curious to see what questions do come up.
Okay. All right. Any other questions anyone have? All right, if anyone have any questions, you can ask me now.
No from my end.
Okay, someone in YouTube asked, one interviewer asked, what will you do in first 3 to 4 weeks of joining as a Scrum Master? All right, so it all depends, like there is no formula that you can apply. You first need to understand that whether the team that you are joining as a Scrum Master for, are the teams new to Agile, or that team is already working on Agile for a couple of years or a couple of months. Your as a Scrum Master, what is your primary job is to facilitate the team to bring to the maturity so that the team can become self-organized, the team can become self-motivated, and they can run by managing themselves by themselves. Now, initially 2 to 3 weeks or maybe first sprint, you will be just observing that how the team is doing. If you are a matured Scrum Master, you understand you don't need to intervene uh, too much for first 2 weeks. You try to find out that how the team is doing. If you see the team is doing well, you will not be able to intervene or ask them to change. If you think the team is doing very bad, there are lots of anti-patterns that you have observed. You may identify, okay, these are the different anti-patterns you have observed. Now, as a Scrum Master, maybe you in the next third week or third to fourth week, you will try to make some plans that from these observations, what is the key problem they are facing, and what will be your recommendations, and what benefit they will get from those recommendations. You will discuss with maybe some management or someone who are there or some coaches so that you can find out how you will be able to apply them and what's the benefits they will be getting from that. Now after that, you start make an implementation plan of your recommendation, because don't try to implement everything overnight. Our job is to go slow, because if you ask the teams to work on a totally different approach from the next day, maybe even if it is third week or fourth week, it will be too much for a team. You need to make a transition plan to recommend that. Now, if you realize when you join the team is already doing very well, some areas of improvement are there, it will be easy to apply those changes. I believe that answered your questions. If not, let me know. All right, so I can see, yeah.
In terms, so my technical team, in terms of, since it is a new team, they're new to the application also, so they don't have an in-depth knowledge of, the application, the technicalities, complexities, dependencies. So I've been observing that their estimations, for now they're doing estimations in hours, so their estimations have not really been that good, and therefore their story pointing would also not be that good.
Okay.
So, I've been facing, there have been a lot of spillovers, even though I've been tracking the requirement gathering have been done by the team. They're not really coming from the PO. So, is it correct to have a story with requirement gathering as a task? And what to do about about pacing up the technical knowledge?
What's your role there?
Scrum Master.
Okay. See, if the team is not doing well, you are the Scrum Master. It's actually your fault if the team is not doing it. It's always, if the Scrum Master is not able to facilitate the team, that's where the team is not able to do it. So you try to make a plan that how you can educate the team, how you can bring those knowledge or information or show them what's the benefit of these story points. If you are just talking about this estimation, how you can...
The problem is the technical knowledge of the application. So as they are getting more work, they are getting more knowledge, and that is how they are improving on their estimations. But that will...
Now, that is what we need to understand. When we go for estimations at the time of story point, estimation is nothing to do with the technical approach. Over here, you are not finding out how you will be implementing it. At the time of story point estimation, you will be you need to find out that what needs to be created or what is there. So, for example, I don't know how to build a helicopter or how to build a rocket, but I can still estimate that okay, building a rocket may take more complexity compared with building a helicopter. So you need to educate in such a way, articulate different examples so that they can find out there is nothing to do with that I will be working on that or I will be developing that. Don't relate how much time it will be taking to develop it. You try to find out from a complexity point of time. For example, I'll take another example. There is a question comes up that, okay, I am a large organization and I acquired, let's say, an ABC organization. And when we started working on converting those all coding, we realized that there is a website that is very useful, which have, let's say, 500 different files, and every files, they have hard coded their company name. So we may need to work on something that we will be replacing all those hard coding to a variable name for our company. So now over here, if you see that the complexity is very low, but the volume is too high. Now it's not, they need to think about I will be able to do it. They just need to think about, okay, this is a low complexity, high volume. Similarly, another task came up that there is a 5-store procedure which needs to be optimized. It is taking, let's say, 10 seconds to load. We need to optimize it to 2 seconds. Now, the volume is low, but the complexity is very high. You need to make them visualize that you are not the person who will be working on that. You just need to categorize them in a bucket, affinity bucket 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, based on what everyone thinks about. So don't relate with what doing the work by yourself and estimate. Try to think about the volume of work. So Mayank, if you want to add something, if I'm missing something over here. All right. I believe it answers your question.
Well, but when they start breaking it down into tasks and then estimate the hours, then
Then
that those hours are kind of not good. Right? For example, they estimate something for 10 hours, it may go on for 20 hours.
yeah, so that's estimate, right? That is why we call that as an estimate. It does not has to be accurate. But if you see that, okay, sometimes you do a retrospection at the end of the sprint, that okay, you planned anticipated. No, if you first need to understand that when you go into agile, this effort estimation is not something that we should always encourage. Right? Effort estimations can be something that we will be not be calculating or thinking about, okay, this is something we need to work on, or effort estimation is something that is not very much encouraged in agile. So if you are practicing that and if you still wants to value it, you realize there are lots of variation comes up at the retrospections, find out what is happening. You estimated 10 hours, you took 20 hours, maybe you don't understand the technology, you may need some training, you may need to go through a knowledge transfer. What will help the team? Try to ask the team. The team should answer, okay, we need something like that. You next sprint, when you are planning, make your capacity allocation in such a way that let's say 60% of the capacity will be allocated for working new hours, new work or new stories. 30% maybe you can allocate for next 4-5 sprints to do a knowledge transfer, where a subject matter expert or a technical persons will give them the idea or teach them how they can work on that particular technology or that particular domain more effectively. So retrospective is the area, is a mirror that you can find out, okay, this is where I need to correct. Are we clear?
Right.
Yeah. All right. Is there any other questions anyone have?
I have one question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So in my new organization, right, the team is following a separate dev cycle and QA cycle kind of a thing. So in this that particular sprint, the dev team will work on user story, and they will entire duration they'll be working on the development task, and then the stories completed in that sprint will go to the QA for in the next sprint basically.
Mm-hmm.
So one cycle, the development work will happen, and those stories will go to QA in the next cycle, next
Okay.
sprint basically.
Okay.
So their dev and the QA cycles are different.
Mhm.
So how we can calculate the velocity in such in that case?
See, velocity is a term that we can use when we work on Scrum, right? If you are doing waterfall, so over there, don't calculate velocity. Are you able to understand what I'm talking about? Because just terming it as sprint is not makes you agile or Scrum team. When you think about Scrum or sprint, at the end of the sprint, you should have something potentially releasable to the production. If you are not capable to deliver something to the production at the end of the sprint, you are not agile. You are not doing Scrum. So instead of terming as a sprint, you term it as a development phase or testing phase. You'll be able to relate that you are still into waterfall. So in this area, first try to bring your leaderships that, okay, we are still doing waterfall. Can we start working on agile? These are the changes we may need to do. That we will be focusing on one sprint of 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Our goal is to do the designing, development, testing, verification, everything for a small amount of work so that we can deliver it as a potentially shippable product. Maybe we have two different teams, we need to bring the people from different teams and make one team as cross-functional. Are you able to understand what I'm talking about? So what you are doing, that's a pure waterfall. You are doing it a small chunk. Maybe you are using Jira, maybe you are doing daily stand-up, but using Jira or doing daily stand-up or terming your 2 weeks as a sprint does not make you Scrum team or Agile teams. You first need to find out the goal of Scrum is to make something potentially shippable at the end of the sprint. If you are not doing that, you are not Scrum. So first thing, we try to find out what is missing within our team so that we can make something potentially shippable. I may need to have a cross-functional team so that one team can do all the job. Testing, development, analysis, whatever it is required. We need to prioritize in such a way so that we can take a small amount of work items and then refine it, plan it, build it, deploy it. For doing these kind of things, maybe there is a cultural change or mindset required. You may need to talk with the management, your leaderships, and try to find out, okay, this is what we are doing. The entire industries are going into agile. Let's try it out and let's see if this is working or not. Mahesh, is that answer your question?
Yeah. So basically, we are not following Agile as of now, if I can say that, and I need to go to the management to come to a state where the development and testing can complete within the single sprint basis.
Right.
And then doing the
Yes.
So maybe that is one of the anti-pattern which most of the team or some of the team does it. So they are actually waterfalling the iterations. So maybe one iteration would be working on the requirement, other would be doing the development and then the QA and the release part. So shortly you are waterfalling the iterations. This is one of the most common anti-pattern we have seen. So being agile, there is a lot of changes which you have to do. The first is you have to change the culture of taking the orders from maybe the manager or the leader to the culture of meaningful conversation. So doing the conversation, getting on the requirement, clearing all your ambiguities. So this is one change. From doing the accurate estimate, so people would always ask you what is the accurate estimate. So there is nothing called accurate estimate. There is always some variability in the work which we do. So the work which we get on day-to-day basis, or maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month. So there is always a variability in the knowledge work. Then people think that the plan should always be form and frozen. So instead of that, you have to go to the adaptive planning. And we think of always to maximizing the productivity of team. So that is also not the thing which we have to focus. Instead of maximizing the team productivity, we have to focus on maximizing the business value delivery of the team. And the last thing is focusing on, so team, instead of somebody is planning work for the team has to plan their own work. So these are some of the mindset or mind shift which the team has to do before they are getting ready for Agile.
Yeah, yeah, sure, yeah, I'll work on that. This is a new organization and this is like something you have come across. And the leadership is asking to, like, they are not following Agile and they want to correlate and follow all the metrics from the Scrum basically, right? They are not following Scrum. So that is when they ask. Yeah.
Exactly, everybody wants the change, but nobody wants to change.
Yes, that's very true.
All right. So there is one question coming on YouTube. Be matured asked, don't you think if there is so much confusion in story point estimation, this is still need to be refined? I'm not sure what you wants to be refined. And if you talk about confusion, no, there is no confusion on story point. It's very crystal clear that what is story points. There is no relation.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Who's this?
Hello. Yes, sir. This is Arvind. I'm from Pune. I'm working with Emerson. I just joined like 10 minutes back. So I would like to have like put my questions. I have a couple of questions regarding estimation also.
Yeah, so we are just having 3 minutes. Is that what you have asked the question? Be matured, is it your name in YouTube?
Yes, sir. That was a YouTube account actually.
Okay, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, yes, sir. Maybe if time permits, you just take a question from me next time when if you find time, maybe you can give me some guidelines.
Sure.
The questions I'll quickly report. So I recently joined a company, sir. One of the confusion I have is when, let's say, for example, my Scrum team, they take up like approximately 70 to 80 story points per week. How should I define, like, if one person, based on the capacity planning, if somebody is present for, so we have a 2 week sprint. Considering 80% efficiency of the team, let's say, for example, if some person is available for the entire 10 days in 2 week sprint, considering 80% efficiency, we are considering 8 story points he is capable of doing in 2 week sprint. If we assign approximately either 8 story points to that guy, when should we expect actually the particular artifact to be delivered? For example, if we assign 2 user stories, one is 5 story point, another is 3 story point. Based on story point, actually, how do we define that when at the end of like maybe second day or fifth day or end of 2 weeks, when that actually work should be getting delivered? How do we define that?
Okay, first tell me why you are using story points. What's the need of using story point? Oh, because you can still do your work without story point as well, right? Is there a particular reason that you are using story point?
Sir, if I have to tell you honestly my answer, I really don't see the difference between the man hours and the story point, the benefits. Because in here also what they are doing is, they are considering one story point means at least it is equivalent to 1 day. So
yeah, that's the immaturity of the thinking of the agile way. Whenever anyone relates story point with effort hours, they are tied into this traditional mindset. They need to think about story point is a different measurement unit and effort hours is a different measurement unit. The same way, you cannot tell that in my user story, if there are 200 words, it will take 5 hours to complete. If my story is having 1000 records, it will be taking 10, because there is no relation. The number of words and the effort, there is no relation. Similarly, story point is not related anyway with how much time it will be taking. It all depends. the person who is working, what their experience level is, how comfortable they are, whether they have working on this knowledge, this particular domain earlier or not. There can be multiple different factors. So story point is just talks about the complexity, volume of work, how much the team knows, how much the team don't know. It does not say is that 5 story pointer will take more than means the time needed to complete a 5 story pointer will always be more than the time taken for a 3 story pointer. Sometimes 3 pointer story can take more times. So if you don't relate that, first try to make your organization understand. Now if you are a Scrum Master is your responsibility is not just for the team to make them self-organizing or make them understand how to work on Scrum. Your responsibility is to bring your organizational maturity as well. That's the Scrum Master role, but many organizations, they think Scrum Master is just a team's responsibility. Now at some point of time you need to identify, or some point of time you need to find out that as a whole organization, I'm not sure how big your organization is, there has to be a center point from where a guidance will be coming up. Maybe you can guide them, maybe some agile coach will guide them and define, okay, don't relate story point with effort hours. You go with the velocity.
Yes, sir. So can I just add one question? Maybe you can answer this, which is related to this. So in this case, for example, so if PO comes up with something, let's say PO came up with some features or the requirements, and if we have a go live maybe in 3 months or 6 months, or any external stakeholder for maybe they want to deploy something, or they came up with a product enhancement. If somebody asks me like we have 50 features in our backlog, and if we are doing a story point estimation, are we in a position to commit them like how long it's going to take if we are doing a story point estimation? Can we commit a timeline?
See, if you think about a triple constraint in waterfall, what we used, the triple constraint are your cost, your scope, and what's the third one? What you will be building, and sorry?
Schedule, sir.
Right, schedule. Now in your agile, what is variable is the scope. You don't say that how much time it will be taking. You will first say we have a timeline of 6 months. Within that, in our backlog, you may have 500 stories. Prioritize them in proper way. We may able to tell you how many of those features we can work on. Or that may change, but we will be able to work on, let's say, 200 story points or 5,000 story points. That's totally up to you. So if you are trying to find out how long this will take, then again we are going into a waterfall mindset. You will first try to find out, okay, if you really want to go for that, how long it takes. First, you need to break down the entire features into small user stories, go into refinement, estimate them, measure what's your velocity per sprint, then calculate, okay, if your velocity is let's say 35 and you have 300 stories, you may take 10 sprints to complete it. But there are possibilities in between. Some of the stories may move out, new stories may come up which will be having different estimation, because we are responding to change over following a plan. So we are not just having a strict timelines and we have started following it. Maybe 3 months later, your product owner may realize there's a competitors already introduced a similar kind of product and we need to compete it. They may change the requirement. So we are not following a plan. So over here, that's the way you can give a high level tentative lines. Okay, we may need 20 sprints to complete on that, but if you are going for 20 sprints, you still be able to say that every 2 weeks we'll be able to deliver only 35 story points. You prioritize it. Now, are you able to understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, actually there is a mindset difference in both these. So traditional project management, you get the work first and then you decide that this is the timeline or this is the money we need to deliver it. But working in agile way, the capacity is fixed. So you say that we have the capacity of 20 story points or 30 story points. Now you have to tell what we have to do in this 20 or 30 story points. So that's how we plan out in the agile way of working.
Alright.
All right.
So there'll be one confusion here. So when we are using velocity and when we are using story point, we need to calculate the hours capacity of the team.
No, not necessary. Not necessary means you should not do that. You means many organizations they are still doing our capacity, but that is not mandatory. That's they are doing it still because they are still transitioning from a traditional way. They still think that is important. Many organizations they are a service industry. They have some billability constraint. They raise bill of all the resources to their client. For that purpose, they may doing it, but don't relate story point with ours.
No, not relating story, but I think they will have no use state capacity in hours. If you are doing
Yeah, there is no use. You means you should not be. If you are doing hours, that you find out whether the organizations have some different need of doing that. If they are real product-based company, there is no client billing. Why you are working on hours? In that case, it will become as that we are doing a micromanagement. We don't need that.
everything is there, but if there is no velocity not yet there.
Your volume is very low. Can you speak a little loudly?
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
But in case the story pointing is not yet started in a team and velocity is not yet established in a team, that at that point the capacity planning may.
Yeah, maybe for the first sprint you can do that, but never repeat that. See, normally what I have observed, many organizations, they are doing capacity planning based on hours. That's perfectly okay if they want to go with that way. If you are doing on a velocity based capacity, that also many organizations do. But if once you will mature your team, once you will establish the agility within your team, you can stop using the hour based capacity and start just only stick with story points. You may have observed in practicality, what I have observed, 50%, 60% of the organizations, they are still doing hourly based capacity. But it's become anti-patterns once they start relating with story points. As long as you are keeping it separate and still using it, that's okay.
So once you move into the velocity driven planning, at that point of time your capacity becomes the velocity of the team.
Your velocity become capacity.
Right? 35 story points is the capacity of the team.
Right.
But in a time and material project, so let's say my project, for example, is a time and material project. So the product owner wants to account for every project that the team member is working on, how many hours it is taking, and therefore how much cost it is incurred on a particular project. So that means they have to account for hours on a particular project as well, like 8 hours per day or 4 hours.
Yeah, so if you are working on TNM, I think your client will be more happy if you go in a waterfall approach, because your whenever you go for agile, you need to understand agile is not for the team, it's for bringing up the customer into under the same umbrella. And if your customer is not ready with come into this agile mindset, even if you want, you cannot go with that. You need to follow that waterfall approach. What is time and material? You already have defined, okay, this is the timeline and this is the scope of work we will be delivering. So there is no way you can respond to change. You will be always following a plan. And over there, even if you go for a small sprint or name it as iteration or sprint, doing story point estimations, doesn't matter. Your focus is to complete this job, because whenever you go for a TNM, you might have a sign up an SLA that if you don't complete it in this time, there will be this much of penalty you will be paying. So your goal is always into that penalizations. You forget about self-organizations or building up self-motivations. They are always in the management's pressures. Okay, we need to complete it this in this week. Whatever the quality get compromised. So using story points on those situations that becomes an added burden for the team, because they realize that ultimately whatever the story point, I know that last iterations we completed 35 story points, but manager is pressurizing us to complete 50 story point this time because they have an SLA, they have committed this much, they will be delivering. So agility got lost on those situations. Are you able to understand what I'm talking about?
So most of the agile projects are on fixed price.
No. Sorry, what I have answered, TNM is still good. I answered it as a fixed bid. Sorry, TNM is, if you are going with the TNM, that's good. Can you just repeat the question? I actually messed up with TNM and fixed bid. Fixed bid, it will not be working very well with Agile, but TNM, it can go very well. What exactly your question was? Windows 10.
That was my question. So agile works well with fixed.
TNM, yes.
Yeah, one more thing which I would like to add. So I'm not going to the budgeting part, but if you are doing the planning or if you want to know what would be the capacity of the team for the first time, you don't have any historical data before, and you don't know what exactly is the velocity of your team. Based on that, you would plan. So there are two ways to do it. The first way is you can go with the courage or the gut feeling of the team, saying that yes, we can do around say 20 points or 25 points. This is one way, but please note that we should be doing it just for the first time. The second time when we are doing the planning, we'll take the data from the first sprint or the first time when we have done planning. The second way, which the SAFE describe, is say if you have a 2-week iteration and a 2-week iteration you have 10 working days. So if somebody is available for 10 working days, he can work on 8 story points, and the number of days he is taking is that will be subtracted from 8. So I am a developer, I have 3 days of scheduled leave, then 3 would be subtracted from 8, so my available capacity would be 5 story points. You are a tester, you have a planned 4-day leave, then 4 would be subtracted from it, then 4 would be your available capacity. So based on this, you can calculate for the first time, and you can plan your first iteration, and once you have completed your iteration, whatever how much of story point you have completed, consider it as your capacity for the next plan.
Alright, so that was the last questions we have took. We are actually exceeded 15 minutes more. We will be having this kind of sessions, maybe open session once in a month, and there are topic based sessions we will be having every Saturday. So join back on the next week. We will be talking about a topic on coach as a facilitator, though it will be more into a scrum master, how we will be facilitating team on that areas. So we will see you there, and thank you everyone for taking your time to join us today. We will see you soon. Till that time,